Hey everyone, ready to explore a new career path?
Always up for that.
Well, today we're diving deep into the world of bookkeeping. And don't worry, it's not all spreadsheets and calculators.
It's way more dynamic than people might think.
Exactly. We've got some great insights from RoleCatcher.com to guide us. They actually call bookkeepers financial storytellers.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
Me too. So how does a bookkeeper, someone dealing with, debits and credits, actually tell a story?
Okay, so picture this. Every single transaction a company makes, every sale, every purchase, it's like a plot point in a story.
Okay, I'm starting to see it.
And the bookkeeper, they're like the detective, meticulously recording those transactions, piecing together the clues to reveal the bigger picture.
So it's about creating a narrative, right?
Yeah.
Showing how the company operates day to day.
Precisely. You're looking for patterns, trends. You're basically uncovering the financial health of the company through the story those numbers tell.
So it's not just crunching numbers. It's about interpreting them, analyzing what they mean.
Exactly. Like, imagine a sudden jump in sales. Sounds great, right? But a good bookkeeper digs deeper.
They ask why.
Yeah. Was it a successful marketing campaign? Is it a seasonal thing? It's about connecting those dots.
It's like detective work. Now, how does all of this get organized? I mean, we're talking about a lot of data.
Right. So bookkeepers use tools like the daybook and the general ledger.
Those sound pretty official.
They are essential. Think of the daybook as like a company's daily diary, recording every single transaction as it happened.
A chronological record of everything.
Yes. And then you have the general ledger, which is where it gets really interesting. That's where those daily entries get categorized, summarized. It gives you that structured view of the company's financial activity.
So the daybook is the raw footage, and the general ledger is the final cut.
I like that analogy. And remember, all of this meticulous record keeping, it's not just for historical purposes.
It's about making smart decisions for the future. Like, can we afford to hire more people? Should we invest in this new product?
You got it. Without that clear financial story, those decisions would be a shot in the dark. That's the real power of a good bookkeeper.
Absolutely. Now, RoleCatcher mentions that the term bookkeeper can have like different variations in the job market. They list things like accounting assistant or finance clerk. Are those basically the same thing?
Well, while the core tasks, recording and organizing financial data, that stays pretty consistent, the actual title often reflects the size and structure of the company.
Makes sense. So a smaller company might use a broader term?
Yeah, like finance clerk, which
Yeah.
might encompass a wider range of administrative tasks. Larger companies might have more specialized roles.
So you might see accounts payable or accounts receivable specialists.
Exactly.
So for someone just starting out, it's less about fixating on the exact title and more about those core skills.
Exactly. Attention to detail, analytical skills, being comfortable with numbers, those are your foundation.
Great advice. Now let's get real about this career path. RoleCatcher gives it to us straight, talking about both the pros and the cons, which I appreciate.
Honesty is the best policy.
Right. So on the plus side, we've got those magic words. Stable job, high demand, good salary.
Those are definitely attention grabbers.
For sure.
Yeah.
But do they hold up in reality?
They do. In today's job market, those are really important factors. And the good news is businesses, big or small, they all need someone to keep their finances in order.
So there's a constant need for bookkeepers.
Exactly. Which generally means decent job security and competitive pay for those with the right skills.
That's reassuring. So this isn't a career path that's going to be taken over by robots anytime soon.
Well, technology is definitely changing things, but it's more about enhancing a bookkeeper's skills, not replacing them.
Like a power tool for a carpenter?
Yes. A skilled carpenter isn't afraid of a power saw. They use it to improve their work. Same idea here.
Makes sense. So how IS technology, especially accounting software, changing the game for bookkeepers?
It's huge. RoleCatcher says it's revolutionized the field, and I'd have to agree.
In what way?
Well, think about things like balancing accounts, generating financial statements. Tasks that used to take forever are now streamlined thanks to software like QuickBooks.
So rather than fearing this technology, aspiring bookkeepers should be embracing it.
100%. Being tech-savvy is practically a requirement these days.
The employers want someone who can not only manage the books, but also use these tools effectively.
Exactly. To work smarter, not harder, and provide more insightful financial analysis.
So it's about wielding those digital tools to become even better financial storytellers.
Precisely.
It's amazing how technology is shaping the field, making bookkeepers even more valuable. Now let's talk career paths. RoleCatcher mentions opportunities for advancement, which always catches my eye. What does that look like in the bookkeeping world?
Well, it's not just about climbing the corporate ladder. It's more about, broadening your skill set, becoming a real expert in your field.
I like that. So where does someone even begin?
RoleCatcher really stresses continuous learning, which makes sense. The financial world is always changing, so you can't just learn the basics and stop there, right?
Right. New regulations, software updates, you got to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
But how? Practically speaking, what does that continuous learning look like?
Well, a lot of bookkeepers go for certifications. A good example is the Certified Bookkeeper designation, the one offered by the American Institute of Professional Bookkeepers.
Having that on your resume, that's got to make a difference.
It does. It shows potential employers that you meet industry standards and you really know your stuff.
And I bet it helps when you're negotiating salary, too.
You bet. Certifications can definitely boost your earning potential. Another good path is specialization.
Specialization, like focusing on a specific industry or something.
Exactly. Maybe you find yourself drawn to a certain area, like nonprofit accounting, real estate, even forensic accounting. Becoming an expert in a niche like that can make you highly valuable.
It's about becoming that go-to person for a specific type of financial storytelling, right?
Yes. And as you gain experience, expertise, you might even think about starting your own bookkeeping business.
Now that's taking control of your career. It seems like there's a lot of potential for growth in this field. But RoleCatcher does mention some potential downsides, like repetitive tasks and the dreaded tax season stress.
Yeah, tax season, that can be tough.
No one loves tax season. So paint me a picture. What does a typical day look like for a bookkeeper during that time of year?
Oh, picture piles of receipts, invoices. You're up to your eyeballs in financial statements, making sure every single thing is categorized correctly.
And fueled by coffee, probably.
Probably a lot of coffee, yeah. But honestly, it's not all stress and late nights. For people who actually like working under pressure, who enjoy a fast-paced environment, tax season can be kind of rewarding.
It's like a marathon, right? Intense. But then you get that feeling of accomplishment when you hit the finish line.
That's a good way to put it. Outside of tax season, though, yeah, some of the day-to-day tasks can be a bit routine. You're doing data entry, reconciliation, that kind of thing.
So that's the trade-off with that stable job. Right?
Yay.
Could be a little too routine for some.
It's true. Not everyone's cut out for that kind of meticulous work, and that's totally fine. But if you enjoy creating order, making sure things are accurate, being that guardian of a company's financial story, then even the repetitive parts can be kind of satisfying.
It's about finding the right fit for your personality.
Exactly. Knowing your strengths, your weaknesses. And that's where RoleCatcher's resources are so helpful. They go beyond just info. They give you actual tools and guidance to navigate the job search, even ace those interviews.
Okay, let's talk about that. RoleCatcher seems to be big on interview prep. They even have a whole section for it. Why is that so important?
Well, in today's job market, you need every advantage you can get. Their interview prep section, it's designed to give you a leg up by showing you what hiring managers are thinking.
So you can anticipate the questions and be ready with answers.
Exactly. They go beyond the generic advice and provide really specific examples of questions you might get asked, all related to bookkeeping.
Give me an example, like what kind of questions?
They might ask you to walk me through your experience with accounts payable and receivable, or describe a time you found a mistake in some financial records.
Okay, so they're really trying to get a sense of your experience, your attention to detail.
Right. But it's not just about knowing the answers. It's about how you deliver them, how you present yourself.
You've got to craft your own professional story, highlighting those moments that show off your bookkeeping skills.
Yes, exactly. And speaking of making the job search smoother, have you heard about RoleCatcher's RoleCatcher.capture plugin?
Okay, that name sounds intense. Tell me more.
So you're on a job board, right? And you see a listing that seems interesting. Instead of copying and pasting all the details or saving the link and maybe forgetting why you saved it, you just click on this RoleCatcher.capture button.
And it does the work for you.
Pretty much. It pulls out the key info from the job posting, like the title, the company, the requirements, all that, and it organizes it right there in your RoleCatcher account.
So no more scattered notes and missed deadlines. It's like having a personal assistant for your job hunt.
Exactly. It streamlines everything so you can focus on the important stuff, like making a great impression and landing that dream job.
That sounds incredibly useful.
We've talked about a lot today, from the ins and outs of bookkeeping to how technology is changing the game. But before we wrap up, I always like to leave our listeners with a little something to think about.
I like that.
So we talked about how technology is transforming the field, but beyond the software, beyond the automation, what do you think will make a bookkeeper truly successful in the future? What are those essential skills, aside from the technical stuff, that will be most valuable in this ever-evolving landscape? We want to hear from you.
Yeah, that RoleCatcher.capture plugin, it's like a lifesaver for anyone who's ever, gotten lost to the abyss of online job boards.
It's the worst, right? So many tabs, so much scrolling.
Exactly. So this plugin, it sounds like it takes away a lot of that headache.
Exactly. Think of it this way. You're on one of those job sites, and bam, you see a bookkeeping position. Looks promising. Instead of like copying and pasting every little detail or bookmarking it and hoping you remember why later, you just hit that RoleCatcher.capture button. Done.
And it grabs everything for you.
It's pretty amazing. It pulls the job title, the company, even those required skill sections, and puts it all neatly into your RoleCatcher account.
Organized chaos. That's the dream. No more trying to decipher your own scribbled notes weeks later.
Right. And that kind of organization, it can make all the difference when you're applying for multiple jobs, tailoring your resume and cover letter for each one.
It was all about being streamlined, efficient. And speaking of presenting yourself well, let's go back to those interview tips for a sec. RoleCatcher seems to really understand what bookkeeper applicants are up against.
Yeah. They don't mess around with generic advice. They get into the nitty-gritty of what those hiring managers want to see.
So it's about being prepared for those specific questions that might come up.
Absolutely. Like a common one is, tell me about a time you had to deal with a difficult client or coworker. They're not just looking for gossip. They want to know how you handle those tricky situations.
Right, how you stay professional, solve problems, work with different personalities.
Exactly. It's those soft skills, that human touch, that can really set you apart.
Even in a field that's often seen as all about numbers, those interpersonal skills are super important.
Couldn't agree more. It's about finding that balance between the technical expertise and those essential people skills.
Well said. We've had a really fascinating conversation today exploring so many different aspects of the bookkeeping world, from, that idea of being a financial storyteller to how technology is changing the game, to the importance of always keep learning and growing. But before we sign off, I always like to leave our listeners with a little food for thought.
Always a good idea. A little something to ponder.
So we talked about how technology is changing things. But looking ahead, beyond the software, what do you think will define a truly successful bookkeeper in the future? What skills, aside from the technical know-how, will be most valuable as the field continues to evolve? We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And with that, we're wrapping up this deep dive into the world of bookkeeping. Huge thanks to our expert for all these great insights, and to you, our listeners, for joining us. Until next time, stay curious.